So Marilu, what made you decide to go to Guatemala to look for the jade source of the Maya?
I went to Guatemala to solve an archaeological problem, which is we had 3,000 years of culture from 1500 BC to 1500 AD. We had millions of jade artifacts in museums around the world, and nobody knew where the source of the jade was.
And why do you think you could find those quarries?
The curator of geology at the Smithsonian had spent 20 years of his life looking for the jade in Mesoamerica, and he finally found it in the Motagua Valley. And he published his publication. It was pretty much a treasure map, and he was saying, dig here. But he died before his publication came out, and it was not distributed by the Smithsonian. Very few people read it. And my husband and I decided to follow up on this treasure map and look for the jade in Guatemala.
Why jade was so important to the ancient Maya for thousands of years?
Jade was so important to the ancient Maya because it was the only permanent thing that they understood in their culture and their life, because the earthquakes, the floods, the fires, everything died and was impermanent. But jade has a shelf life of 400 million years. It's going to be here for a very long time. So they decided that jade represented eternity or immortality.
Can you tell me something about this mask?
Yes, this mask is a replica of a national treasure of Guatemala. The original's in the National Museum in Guatemala City, but this was made by artisans. The original mask was discovered in the 1960s by archaeologists from the University of Pennsylvania, and when they excavated the tomb, they found the original jade mask over the face of the ruler who was called Lord Quetzal, and he was buried at Tikal in 540 AD. So this would have been over his face as his passport to immortality. It's such a well-known mask worldwide that it was actually on the cover of September 1987 National Geographic.
What is jade?
Jade is actually a generic term. It comes from Spanish at the time of the conquest. The conquistadors found the Mayas wearing jade and the Aztecs, and they decided it was piedra de hijada. And when they took the first jade back to Europe, Europeans had never seen jade, and they had no words for jade in any European language. So piedra de hijada in Spanish became jada in Italian, jada in German, jade in English, jade in French. So all the words in European languages that describe jade come from Spanish. The correct mineralogical terms for jade are jadeite and nephrite. Jadeite and nephrite are two very different stones with different physical properties and different values, but they are both equally jade. One isn't any more or less jade than the other. So if you hear someone say, oh, is that jadeite or is it jade? That means they're totally clueless and they don't know that jadeite is jade. I want to show you something interesting about jadeite jade, which is the rarer and more valuable form of jade. Here is something that I think you can enjoy looking at. This is imperial green jadeite jade, which is only found in Burma or Guatemala. So this 27 bead necklace was sold at Christie's in 1997 for $9.3 million. The same necklace, which is the same 27 beads, was sold in 2014 for $27.4 million. So that's $1 million a bead. So that's why imperial green jade is the world's most valuable gemstone.
And how do you know it's jade?
The way to really know whether or not it's jade is to have the jade in your hands. No jade expert anywhere in the world will tell you anything about a piece of jade unless they have it in their hands. So jade is a tactile experience. And what you're feeling for is it cold? Is it heavy? Is it waxy? Is it greasy? Does it feel glassy? If it feels glassy, it's almost certainly going to be jade, as long as it's cold and heavy. But around the world, stones are sold as jade that aren't jade. For instance, in India, they sell aventurine quartz to tourists, and they tell them it's Indian jade. In China, they sell serpentine and aventurine to tourists, and they call it new jade. In Mexico, they sell aventurine and serpentine to tourists. It's Mexican jade. And all over the world, 90% of what's sold to tourists as jade is not jade. So if you really want to buy a piece of jade, make sure you've got a laboratory analysis, for instance, from the Gemological Institute of America.
What makes jade so unique and special?
Basically, it's like I said, it's very different from any other stone, and it can come in any color, and it's going to bring with it the properties of eternity and immortality with it. So it's a very magical, mystical stone.
What should you look for when you're buying jade?
I think the first thing to look for when you're buying jade is its texture, its tone, its translucency, and you want to make sure that it's something that is a piece that calls to you, a piece that feels special to you, that has a special feel when you touch it.
What is the history of jade in the island of Roatan?
The island of Roatan was, for about 800 years, very important archaeological site for different jade pieces that were traded from the Motagua Valley on the Maya mainland over to Roatan, because Roatan didn't have its own source of jade. But at the time of Columbus, in Columbus's journals, he describes seeing a Maya trading canoe off the coast of Roatan with a trader who had a lot of different trade goods from the Maya area. And we know that the history goes back about 800 years. And it used to be every time you would stick a shovel into the ground in Roatan, you would find a jade artifact. So this is part of the history of the island of Roatan.
Why did the knowledge of jade disappear in the conquest?
The knowledge of jade disappeared at the time of the Spanish conquest because the Spaniards were looking for gold. They wanted to save souls for Christianity. They found the local people worshiping jade. They declared the worship of jade to be idolatry, worship of false idols, punishable at the time of the Spanish Inquisition by torture and death. So within 20 years of the Spanish conquest, 3,000 years of culture were obliterated. And when I got to Guatemala, 450 years later, the temples had crumbled, the jade sources were lost, the trails had overgrown, and I rediscovered the sources. I solved the archaeological problem, and I restarted the jade industry that had been lost to Guatemala.
What would you recommend cruise guests take home in jade?
If you get a chance to visit any of our stores, they're all Jade Museum stores in Roatan. I have a couple of suggestions. One is the Aztec rabbit, and this is a replica of a wonderful original piece that's in the Dumbarton Oaks Museum in Washington, D.C. And here's the original rabbit right there. And it's a piece from the Aztec period. And the other thing that I particularly love is an eternity watch. And the eternity watch is a piece of jade, and you can look at your watch and say, you know, I don't know what your watch says, but my watch says 400 million years, because jade's going to last for 400 million years. So that's a fun thing to take home. And the most sought after pieces are pieces that have to do with the Maya calendar. We sell these in all of our stores. It's a Maya hieroglyph inscribed with a date, any of the 20 days in the Tzolk'in calendar. And it, is a beautiful piece, and it's something that you can always wear and treasure. And you can look up any date in the Maya calendar, and anniversaries and birthdays. We have a book that talks about that day. And so we sell it with a GIA assay, a certificate from the Gemological Institute of America, and a card describing that day in the Maya calendar.
Where can we find you in the island of Roatan?
So when you get to Roatan, you want to visit one of our jade museums. Our jade museums all tell part of the story about the history of jade on the island, including the history of jade inlay and teeth, and some of the other features that make it really unique for the island. Go to Mahogany Bay Cruise Port or Cox and Hull Cruise Port, and also in Cox and Hull there's a separate museum called Fort Consolation, and Tabyana Beach has one of our Maya jade museums, and also Gumbalimba Park, which is like a zoo on Roatan. So enjoy your visit to Roatan. I hope you really learn a lot about the island and have fun.